This is a podcast about one woman's mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners write better business books. Each week, we tackle your writing excuses, because there are excuses too, and help you beat the blank page of doom so that you can write the book that'll grow your life and your business. Now here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I'm Vicky Quinn Fraser and this is my husband Joe.
Hello.
Hello.
You're Quinn Fraser now.
Well, I thought that'd be easier.
Okay, all right.
This is all preparation for when we change our names to Quasar.
Right, it's just leading into that point.
Yeah, because that's going to happen at some point. Cheers.
Cheers.
We are drinking mint choc chip tea. What's it like?
It tastes like somebody dissolved a, what are those ice creams? A mint choc chip cornetto dissolved in a puddle.
Dissolved in a puddle.
Possibly a pond.
I think it's quite nice. I think Joe does not.
Kinda.
Okay, right. Do you know what? I was going to go on a bit of a rant about the British media, but we'll leave that for next week when I might dedicate an entire half of the podcast to the absolute oxygen thief that is Piers Morgan and his associated shitrag press. But for now, because we only have 20 minutes, and it's important and it is related to what we do.
Yeah.
Because it's about language and how language is used and basically giving a voice to old white men who should just crawl into a hole and die. Anyway, what are we reading this week? Joe, what are you reading?
I'm reading Overstory by Richard Powers, which I think is a Pulitzer Prize winner. It's, Times bestsellers, all that kind of jazz. I think last week I was reading it as well.
Yeah.
And it was feeling like a succession of short stories. It is no longer feeling like a succession of short stories because everybody has conveniently met up.
Okay, cool. Are you still loving it?
It went through a little bit of a dip at the point where people started meeting up.
Okay.
And it's picked up again now that there's like a main theme story. But for a while it felt a little bit scattered. Okay. But yes, I am enjoying it. It's very good. Cool.
I'm looking forward to reading that. That was in my pile that I haven't got to yet.
Yes. I just ran out of things to read, so I started reading your stuff.
That's cool. Instead of me thrusting books upon you and going, read this.
Read this thing. What are you reading?
I'm reading Thief of Time by Terry Pratchett for only the second time, I think, which is really cool. And I'm enjoying that. And so that's my nighttime reading. But my non-fiction reading is Prisoners of Geography by Tim Marshall. It's really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's all about geopolitics and looking at, why the world is the way it is, but through the lens of physical geography. And so I've had a potted history of Russia, and it's just made me understand a little bit better about why Russia is the way it is and why their foreign policy is the way it is and why they've always been seen as massively expansionist. And when you learn about the geography of the place, it makes much more sense. And the same with... and now I'm on China. It's the same with China, and it's like the reason that China and India have never had a massive scrap is basically because the Himalayas are in the way. Mm-hmm. And even now with technology, you can fly over them. Actually, I don't think it is that easy to fly over the Himalayas, is it?
I don't think everything can fly over the Himalayas.
No. But even then, that's kind of the history of those two countries. They're both massive superpowers. They've never had a big scrap, and they probably never will. And it's because of...
Let's hope not, eh?
I know, right?
Get really messy very quickly.
Yeah. But then there's other stuff that just gives you an insight into why things are the way they are. Not excusing them, because, China's behaviour in Tibet and all the rest of it. But you begin to understand why China is so invested in Tibet. And it's to do with the physical geography. It's where all their rivers rise, and there's control of water sources and stuff like that. So you begin to understand where they're coming from. But it's really, really interesting, and I'm learning an awful lot about... obviously can't do the entire world. He's kind of picked, I guess, the major bits that he's interested in. Mm-hmm. But yeah, absolutely fascinating. Really interesting. So
sounds good. Might read it.
Yeah. I'm enjoying it. So yeah, that's what we're reading this week. What are you reading this week, dear listener? Tell us if you have a book recommendation for us to read. Fiction or non-fiction. I'm always up for book recommendations.
Cool.
And Dingle news. We've got vegetable seedlings coming up.
We should have a little glockenspiel or something that we can do Dingle news.
Dingle news, ding, ding, ding. That's your job for next week. Please.
Okay.
What was the TV show, or was there a film where...
All of them.
All of them.
I mean, Good Morning Vietnam and
Ding, ding.
loads of radio shows have a glockenspiels and hooters and things, don't they?
Yeah, let's not do a hooter. I think that'd be really invasive.
What's that Vicar's son wannabe white rapper dude who's like 60 now and a bit embarrassing?
What?
With his air horns.
What?
Oh, come on.
Vanilla Ice?
No, British.
I really have no idea.
Okay, I'm gonna mull that over and come back to that.
Cool. Oh, also,
Westwood. Westwood.
No idea who you're talking about.
Okay.
Also at Casa Dingle, yesterday was, as well as being International Women's Day, woohoo, although frankly every day is International Women's Day for fuck's sake, it was also St. Duthak's Day.
It was.
And Joe's middle name is Duthak.
Somewhat surprisingly.
Yeah, and so do you want to tell us a little bit about St. Duthak, Joe?
So St. Duthak was born around the year 1000. He died around the year 1066, I think. He hung around in Scotland and Tain.
That wasn't a bad age for that.
He was educated partly in Ireland, and he was quite a nice guy by the sounds of things. He did some nice miracles, most of which were only sort of discovered after he died, which makes me kind of wonder. But hey-ho.
All of them. Okay, carry on.
What? No.
Miracles.
Miracles. So he had a command of birds. He had a capacity to retrieve the lost, and he had the gift of providing nourishment to people. I don't quite know what that means.
Sounds dirty.
And he could protect you from wild weather, which I think is important up in Scotland. He also, once he died and was, he was found years later to be uncorrupted. And his remains, his remains have been moved around several times and disappeared in the Reformation. But there's still chapels and churches and things dedicated to him.
I mean, he sounds quite cool.
He was all right.
Yeah. So yes, it was St. Duthak's Day yesterday. Okay, so if we're looking for miracles, by the way, I always like say this as like people, I'm looking for a miracle. Go plant a seed in a pot, water it, and then wait for it to grow up. Miracle right in front of your fucking face. I've got a greenhouse full of seeds at the moment, and my cucumbers and radishes have just started popping up, and so have my salad leaves.
Yes.
And I've got leeks and tomatoes and strawberries all coming up too. And I love it. I get really excited, don't I?
Okay. You get very excited about it. And you're like, come and have a look at this. And it's a very small green sprout poking its way out of the ground.
But it's cool. Anyway, so this week we are looking at tools, tips, and techniques to help you write your book.
Right.
And because I wanted to talk about this because everybody is always looking for a hack to make everything as easy as possible, or, just make it happen by magic. Mm-hmm. And there is no easy hack for writing a book. You just have to sit down and put the work in. But there are tools and tips and techniques to help make writing easier.
Okay.
So I just wanted to run through a few of my favourite tools this week and explain what I use.
Excellent.
And we'll put some links in, and there'll be affiliate links as well. So if you want to buy any of this stuff, use my affiliate link, and I will make a couple of quid.
Get some pennies.
I'll get some pennies. You don't have to use my affiliate link. Obviously, you can use whatever link you like. But if you like me and, all that kind of thing. So we'll start with, I've divided this into 3 sections, writing and editing tools, productivity tools, and publishing tools.
Okay.
So I'm just going to run through them, relatively swiftly. But you can ask me questions about them if you want to.
Sure.
So stuff that helps you to write and organise and generally get words out of your head and onto paper or electronic paper, whatever you use. So thing that I use most often, Scrivener.
Piece of software. It's available for Windows and Mac. Mm-hmm. Isn't wildly expensive, and you can try it for 30 days, but for 30 actual days. 30 days of use, not just 30 calendar days. Not like download it now and it's gone in a month.
Yeah, which I really like because it means that you get a proper trial out of it. So that I think is really cool. I use it to write and organise, not just my books, but also content and everything else.
So what does it do differently from things that people are used to, like Word?
Oh, okay. So Word, you end up with lots of different documents, right? So if I was... Either you end up with one giant document or you end up with lots and lots and lots of different documents. So I'll talk about books and I'll talk about content. So in terms of books, you can write your book in a Word document. It quite often ends up being like 200 pages of a Word document, which is this giant unwieldy thing. And it's really difficult to find stuff. And if you were going to do that, I would suggest you go into Google Docs and do it in there, because you can at least click on the hyperlinks at the side of the Google Doc and find the different chapters and things. But basically a Word doc, I mean, yeah, it'll do the job. And I certainly wouldn't say to somebody, if that's what you're used to, go use something else that's going to confuse you. It's like, use the thing that's going to get you to write. But I don't use Word for, or Pages, Mac Pages, for writing really anything anymore, because of the whole, giant unwieldy thing, and you have to save it in folders. So the difference is that in Scrivener, I will create a file called, say, my next book. And within that file, I can have lots of separate documents. So I can be like, oh, here's my introduction, here's chapter 1, here's chapter 2. I can also have another binder within Scrivener for all of my research. I can also have another binder for just brain farts that come out of my face. And it all stays in the same place, in the same project.
Okay.
And it's really, really cool. And when you can export the whole thing into a single Word document if you want, or to separate Word documents, or however you want to export it.
Okay. So just as an example, you've got a document open in front of us right now called 2021 content.
Yes.
And in it, you've got podcasts for January, there's 4, February, 4 of them, March, 4 of them. And there's articles, February, March, there's email, Instagram type stuff. There's a whole bunch of things that you are doing in this one document, which is easily navigable and makes sense.
And the reason I love that is because I want my content to be themed for the month. So I want it all to tie together in some way. I don't just want to be doing random stuff. And so I'm like, I want to do a podcast about tools, tips and techniques, for example. And then I can think, okay, what article am I going to write this month? It's like, you know what? I did a podcast on this, so I can write an article on this topic too.
Sure.
And I can see, what did I write about last week in my emails? That kind of thing. So I love it. It's really, really, really useful tool. I don't use anything like all of the features because I find it also very complicated. I use it for very basic stuff, but for me, it's where all of my content sits. So I also use my Remarkable, which is great for taking notes. There it is.
One of these things.
Just waving it. I thought about this long and hard for a couple of years before I decided whether or not to don't write all my stuff. I thought long and hard about it before actually investing in it, and I use it every day now.
Cool.
It's great for taking notes because you can export them, you can turn handwriting into text, you can organise it all into folders so you're not kind of flipping through paper journals to find stuff. I also use, still, my paper bullet journal, and I use that every day too. That's great for taking notes, for sketching and thinking, and I will come back to that for productivity in a moment.
Okay.
Another tool, a writing tool, 750words.com for the daily writing habit and for emptying my brain before I start my writing day. So I pay the grand sum of $5 a month for 750words.com. And I go in and I write 750 words at least every day. Usually I write a couple of thousand in there. And I start off just emptying like anything that I might be worried about or that's bothering me or just, random thoughts pinging around my brain. And then quite often I'll write a first draft of stuff in there and then transfer it to somewhere else. But it's really good because I now have a streak of, I think I'm on like 351 days without a break. I don't want to break that streak.
So you write.
So I write, even if I write, I don't know what to do. So yeah, that's a really good tool. Pro Writing Aid I use for spelling, grammar and style checking.
So this is a competitor to Grammarly.
Yeah, so I used to use Grammarly. I used to use the paid for Grammarly. And then I tried Pro Writing Aid and find it better.
Okay.
I think it's better. I think it's a better tool. I think it's more sophisticated for writers. And you can choose what you want it to check and what you want it to do. So if you literally just want it to check spelling and grammar, you can do that. If you want it to check style, it's like, this is a bit of a wordy sentence. There's passive there. There's, it can give you, style tips as well.
Tailored style tips.
Yeah. And I think, it's just really good. So again, I like Pro Writing Aid. I think I bought the lifetime version for like 70 quid or something. So I've just got it now. They had a Black Friday sale and I was like, well, I'm having that.
Cool.
I use it quite often. So you can either write straight into it and save it as a document on its own, or I think you copy paste it. I tend to copy paste into it and then just...
Yeah, it's not the place you write, it's the place you get advice from.
Exactly. So my next writing tool, thesaurus.com. Often got thesaurus.com open. Also a paper thesaurus. Also I use like dictionaries of slang and things like that to find interesting words. And there's a couple of other online thesaurus-y type tools which I was going to include but ran out of time. So there's those as well. And then Evernote for gathering stories and articles and saving them with tags so that I can find them and refer to them later.
So Evernote is just it's a it's an interesting thing. I find it a little bit difficult because I don't use it very often. But it's a method of just you can dump documents and thoughts and photographs and clip stuff out of websites and all the rest of it. Like you say, you can tag it up, put it in folders, organize it, and when in the future you think, I'm sure I read something interesting about trees, you can go to Evernote and go trees, and it'll give you all the things with trees in. And you'll be like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. It is worth spending a bit of time tagging your stuff properly, because if you don't, it can be a bit annoying because it'll throw everything at you, because it also searches the content. It also searches the content of PDFs, which is really cool. So if you're like, I'm sure I read something in a PDF about such and such a word, and it will search the content of the PDF, which is really useful, because if you haven't tagged it with that, then that could be cool. So those are the writing and editing tools I tend to use every day. There are others that I use a little bit as well, but I just wanted to share the ones that I use. Productivity tools. Love me a productivity tool. Stuff that helps me stay focused, stop faffing with stuff I don't want to be doing. My simplest productivity tool is putting my phone on airplane mode and hiding it behind my books or in my office cupboard or something like that. But I have a few other things as well. So, as I said, my bullet journal. The way I use my bullet journal is I used to just have a daily to-do list, which just got big and unwieldy and never got everything crossed off and just made me stressed. So now I have a monthly power list where I put all of the stuff on that I want to achieve, and then the daily to-da list, I call it, the daily to-da list, I keep manageable. And so it's like, if I can get the top 3 things of my daily to-do list done every day, then that's a win for me. If I finish all of the stuff on my to-do list, then I might be like, oh, I'm going to take something off the big list, the master list, and start working on it. But the master list is really to keep track of things that I want to do in a month without having them stressing me out on a daily basis.
Sure.
Because I'm not necessarily going to be working on my stuff on a Tuesday, because that's a client day for me, for example. Yeah.
So seeing it on a list and knowing it needs doing, and yeah, it's a good way to kind of background some things, isn't it?
Yes. So that is how I do that. I also use Brain Music on YouTube because I'm too cheap to pay for Brain FM. But you can go onto YouTube and look for alpha wave music, and it's a bit like new agey and kind of, it sounds like you're walking into a crystal shop, doesn't it?
It does a bit, yeah.
But I've actually found that after the first couple of minutes of being like, oh, it just seeps into the background, and just I find it a really good concentration aid. So may or may not work for you. I find it, some people like to use white noise, like the sound of rain, which can also work. Especially if you're in a noisy place, I guess it can be a nice way to block other things out.
Sure.
The Pomodoro technique, I really like, using my timer on Alexa. So she's right behind me and she'll wake up if I say it out loud. So yeah, whenever I feel overwhelmed, I will pick one of the things on my list, start the timer for 20 minutes and just go. And that really gets rid of the overwhelm for me, because like I looked at my things this morning, I was like, oh, I've got all these things to do. I'm like, okay, I'm going to work on my lead magnet, start a timer, just get on with it. And cool. Yeah, and it works really well. And I can often work for longer than 20 minutes, but it's to get started.
It's the getting started part, yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise the overwhelm will just stop you. Scrivener's composition mode. So in Scrivener, you can fade everything else. You can click a little button and fade everything out. I'm just going to demonstrate it to Joe right now. And so you get that, so you can't see anything else.
Okay.
And that can be quite useful because if you've got like other windows visible in the background, it can be a little bit distracting.
Sure. So what that did was it hid all of the menus, it hid the sidebar, it hid the navigators, it hid all of the icons on the bottom of the screen, and it just gave you a black screen with a white document on it.
Yeah. And then just escape to come out of it. But that I find really useful as well. I sometimes forget it's there, actually. I'd forgotten it was there until I wrote this. But I often do my focused writing in Scrivener with that composition mode. I also use Freedom app, which blocks access to social media and other distracting sites, and I can set the times when I don't want to be distracted. So that's a good one. I think you can put it on your phone as well, but I've never managed to make it work very well with my iPhone. So mind you, I didn't spend much time looking into it. So. RescueTime is something else that I've just started using. Tracks the time that you spend on different activities and on which websites. When you first set it up, you can tell it what sites are productive sites for you and what sites aren't. And it'll tell you how much productive time you've had. This is really useful if you want to know exactly what you're doing with your time. So if you work with clients and you want to know exactly how much time you're spending, because if you come away from the computer, it'll ping up a thing that says, welcome back, what have you been doing since 11:45 a.m.? And it'll be like, oh, I've been on the phone to a client or I've been answering an email, and it'll put all that together and you can be like, oh, I think I spend, if you work for a client and you're like, they've paid for 2 hours of your time a day, for example, then it might be that actually you're spending 3 hours a day on them because of all the little incidental bits and pieces. And it's you need to know that.
Yeah.
So that's a really good thing to do.
That's cool.
Yeah. Habit tracker. So I have 2 habit trackers. I have streaks on my iPhone, which I can set up different habits and I tick them off each day as I do them. And I also have a really low-tech, simple printed piece of paper on my wall, and I tick off the things that I want to do every day or however many days a week. So I've got like my stretch. I want to stretch every day. I want to do 750 words every day. I want to go for a 10-minute walk every day. I want to practice my Spanish every day. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to break that chain. It's nice to see a string of red crosses.
Cool.
Publishing tools. I don't use Scrivener to publish because I find it very complicated and faffy. There are some really good training courses that you can use, so that's all I'm going to say about that. But what I use to publish is Vellum. It's fantastic for creating simple books for print and e-reader because it's already got its preset, this is what a good book looks like. Mm-hmm. It's a bit pricey if you're only creating one book, but if you write a lot of books or you work on client books, it's really good value. So I use it. I've made my money back many times over from it. The cons with that is it's a little bit limited on what you can do with layout and design, but for simple books, it's great.
Yeah.
You don't need it to be too complicated. InDesign I use for more complicated books. If, for example, there were going to be lots of images or a weird non-standard size, but it can be quite labour intensive. So I try and avoid that and use Vellum if at all possible.
Could you go from Vellum to InDesign?
Not easily, no.
Okay.
No. I also use Canva, which is fantastic for creating lead magnets, newsletters, ebooks, graphics for social media, that kind of thing. I say I use Canva. Mostly Harriet uses Canva.
Hi, Harriet.
Hi, Harriet. But I do use it as well, and it's good.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the tools that I use.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's mostly under control. And do you find, because you've got lists here, you've got a list there, you've got some stuff online, you've got, there's various different things that you track in various different ways. Do you find that they reduce your stress or raise like the number of things you feel you've got, the number of plates you've got spinning?
Excuse me. No, because I've only really I've got my list. My to-do list only ever goes in my bullet journal, so that's the only place I have that. Mm-hmm. And then my habit trackers, no, I don't find them stressful. I find it a nice reminder because the one on my phone tracks mostly different stuff to the one on my wall. So one on my phone is, I don't know, it's just different. No, it doesn't stress me out.
Okay.
It works for me. I found a thing that works for me. So
cool.
Yeah. So what's the takeaway, Joe?
There might be lots of things that can help you organise or form habits, but there's no kind of magical thing that's going to do the work for you.
There is not.
You're going to actually have to sit down and do the work.
Yeah.
But you can be more organised, less stressed, and more informed about where you're spending your time and your effort and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So what are your favourite tools, dear listener? Email me, vicky@moxiebooks.co.uk. Let me know. I would love to hear them. Mm-hmm. Let me know what works for you, what doesn't. Let me know if you try any of these tools and they work really well for you as well. That'd be cool.
I really like Jinko for technical documents.
I used to use that, yeah.
Yeah.
Can talk a bit about that.
That's really good. Really
I've just realised I have to go now.
Ooh.
So, very quickly, coming up next week, we'll either be talking about the bullshit of the British media or we will talk about the inspiration myth and the big secret to creativity.
Excellent.
We'll see. Tune in, find out. Otherwise, thanks so much, dear listener. We'll be back same time next week. Go and subscribe to us, go and rate us, go and review us, and share it. Share this podcast with people who you think might enjoy it.
Cool. Bye then.
Ta-ta.
Thanks for listening. You can find links and show notes on the website at moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, where you can also sign up for the best daily emails in the multiverse and find loads of free resources to help you write your book. We'll be back the same time next week with more tales from the book writing trenches and the latest on what the tiny sheeps have been up to.